So everybody, we're back once again, another week of Sink or Swim. Today, I'm really excited because of the respect I had for veterans, and for this man I'm going to speak about now, Rick Rescorla, is just an incredible human being. And I want to introduce his wife, Susan. And Susan, it's really my pleasure, my honor to have you here and representing you and your husband. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for asking me. Thank you.
So for the people that don't know about your husband, which I've done a ton of research on him, and I've been watching some of his shows, the books, reading some of the things you're doing. Can you explain a little bit about your husband to the people that don't know who he is?
Yes. Well, we were only married about 2.5 years, and so I didn't, I didn't at that time know any of his background or being in the Army, but he was born in the UK. He was born in England, and he always was a leader when he was a little boy. This is what his mother had told me. He was always a leader, and then he decided when he graduated from high school there, he joined the Flying Detectives of London, and then he decided to go to college, and he put himself through all kinds of colleges, and he wound up even being having a law degree. So when I met him, as I said, it was very quick. I was divorced, he was divorced, and we lived in the same townhouse area, and I had never seen him there before. And so I'm out walking my dog, and he is walking at a quick pace, but he doesn't have any shoes on. So I said to him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I want to know how it feels to be in what is it, Tunisia? No. Rhodesia, and walk, barefoot." And then he kept going in pace, and he kept going. So the next day, I saw him. I was getting in my car to go to work, and he was in his car going to work, and he looked out the window, and he said, "How about going out with me?" So I said, "Well." He said, "Let's just go down to, someplace near Pennsylvania, and we'll have coffee or have lunch together and everything." And that was it. From that moment on, we never stopped seeing each other. And so I had to learn little by little about this man and everything that he had done in his life, all this time that I was missing everything he did. But, he was someone who when you met him, you immediately loved him because he didn't push himself on people, but he was always giving. Even his men that worked for him in Morgan Stanley, I mean, if they needed a suit, he would, get his own money out and give them extra money to do this and that. And he would get off of the train in New Jersey when he was coming home. And if he saw somebody homeless or somebody needed food, he immediately took care of all of that. So a lot of people look at him as the warrior, and he was a warrior, but he also had the other side of him, which I am so glad about, because he was a poet. He wrote books. I mean, it wasn't like he only liked one thing or whatever. He just was a man for all seasons.
It's a financial services company, and we have a veterans group at S&P. I'm not a veteran, but I went to school for studying American history, and I was really interested in military history. And I just, as you do, and as Katie and everyone and Susan, we have just genuine appreciation for service, especially people like me that haven't served. I feel we have an even greater debt to pay, to give back to those that have served all of us. And I used to work in the office. Now I work from home, but before the COVID days, we would do fire drills. And I remember learning about Rick's story on a program on C-SPAN, maybe like 12, 13 years ago. So fast forward to, I'm working at S&P, we're doing drills, and I would tell everybody, because most people, these financial types, people are on calls, they're busy, they don't want to do a fire drill, and they don't want to do training. But once I learned about Rick's story and how he would time the Morgan Stanley employees, especially after in the wake of the 93 bombing, which we're coming up to the 30th anniversary of that next month, he knew something was going to happen again, and he didn't know when, but he knew it was going to happen. So he would train all the employees and have a timer to make sure that they were improving every time the evacuation and
This
meeting
is
the evacuation
incredible.
plan.
I
But
was just gonna
that's,
say,
that's the intuition of a guy that served, I think. When people ask, why did he know? And I just think it's because of the intuition of being a warrior. He was a warrior. He had an internal clock that he understood, I think, things that other people didn't see. And I was watching and I was listening to how these people were getting annoyed. Susan, you were talking about how they were getting annoyed. Meanwhile, his actions for the last couple of years saved so many lives that, I mean, it's incredible what I mean, just what his training taught
And if-
them to train to save
If
so
I could
many.
just hold up, we brought with us here. So this is the cover of the original version of the book, We Were Soldiers, which most people know the movie, We Were
Yeah.
Soldiers with Mel Gibson. And that came out, it was being made right before and around the time of 9/11, but then came out in 2002. And he's on the cover of the book. But Susan, do you want to tell the story of, when they asked him to be depicted in the film, he didn't want to be, right? He was very humble, and there's a famous New Yorker article where there's a quote that he said, where he said, "The real heroes are dead," and he didn't want the spotlight. He was all about lifting up other people.
I think that was both sides. I think he did like doing everything, but in some cases, not. That he was humble, but he was also, why wouldn't he be so proud of himself? You know what I mean? He was a man for everything. Let me tell you, he just was a piece of someone that I never thought in my whole life I would meet. And
What was he as far as stature? Was he a big guy? He looks pretty big to me.
Yes, he was a big guy, and he'd say to me, "Now listen, I have to lose some weight, but what are we having to eat tonight?" And I'd say blah blah blah, and then he'd say, "Oh, can we have something else too, or can we go at?" He was a piece of work, really, but he just, I don't know. We laughed so much. It's just so wonderful to remember, all of that. And he had two best friends, if I may. You might not know about this little incident, but anyway, he had two best friends. One was Dan Hill, and the other one was Fred McBee. And every time they were working on something, he would call them up to get some more information and so forth and so on. And both of them have passed away, and so I used to call them the Musketeers,
Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. So now I'm down in Washington, D.C., and I'm talking and I'm giving this chat about Rick and everything. And when I walked out, I kind of knew what I wanted to say, but I had just really thought about it like 15 minutes before. And I thought, no, I'm going to say this. So I got out on the stage with like 500 people there or more. And I said to them, I have to tell you something. I said, my husband has been dead now 20 years. His two best friends are dead, and they're up there with him having a wonderful time. And all I can tell you is that when God takes me, those guys better get out of there, because I'm coming up to be with my husband for the rest of my life. I got a standing ovation, okay?
That's
so
great.
sweet.
So for the other people that don't know who's the fourth person in the set here, it's a very good friend of mine, assistant to me. She does all the work that couldn't make all the stuff happen on all the shows we do. Shows like this, it's Katie Collins. And Katie, can you ask him what's going through your mind? And she does so much work with organizations, also veterans, and she helps me with everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, just talking with Adam, I was telling him I was in the Verizon store and a veteran came in, and I, obviously thanked him for his service and talked about where he was stationed in Germany. But then I started talking about Rick. I'm just so excited to meet you. And, like I said before, your husband is a legend. Just the accolades go on and on and on, and so impressive. And I was just so excited that I was just telling this person I don't even know in the store all about him.
Well, I have to
just
tell you
amazing.
something else about my husband. Several months before 9/11, he actually was telling me in his own way that he knew something was going to happen, and it was
Wow.
going to be bad, and that he probably, we would never be together again. And I'm not making this up, because I've told so many people this. So even with the Eagles, where he had found that years before he even knew me, he liked to go there. And we were there at one time, and he said to me, you know, if something happens to me, I want you to memorialize this cage of eagles, because he said, I want to be flying with the eagles. And then we go forward, and he dies, and there was no body. I never had a body, but I did have his charred military card.
Yeah.
And so now we're at the Raptors and everything. And so I remembered what he kept saying to me, remember what I'm asking you to do. And all of these things led up to this. Like he said, you'll remember me in the petal of a flower, and you'll remember me in the ripple of a water. And he would continually do that. And please, I would like you to memorialize this cage, because I want to fly with the eagles. And I went home that day, a month before 9/11, and I wrote down every single thing he asked me to do. And when he died, I finished everything that he asked me to do. And I spent so much time afterwards wanting for people to know about him, but in a different way. And I wanted them to talk about America. And I was coming down from Boston on the train after visiting a girlfriend of mine, and there were some political people, or not political, but guys that were worked on
Business.
in the business world.
Business, yeah.
And I said to them, right, it's really awful what happened on 9/11. And they said, we don't care, we just want to make money. And then I decided that I was going to go to as many countries that I could, because I have been traveling since I was 16 years old, to everywhere you can imagine. And one of the places I had not been was, where did I go? That was
In Russia.
to Russia. I went to Russia, and I liked to go and talk to the people about what do you think about what happened to America? Not specifically, they wouldn't have known Rick's name or anything like that, but just getting to hear what people said about what happened. And Rick did know something was going to happen. And he actually, when I keep telling you how he kept saying to me, you'll remember me, or he'll be singing songs. And he went to visit his mother twice before he died, because he knew that he wouldn't see her again. So the last time that he went to visit his mother, he went by himself, and he was only there, I don't know, maybe 5 days or so or something. And his best friend said he would take him to the railroad to get the train back up to London to go home. And so when he got there, he went to the front of the train, and he looked down at his friend, and he said that he wanted to say goodbye to Cornwall. And little did he know that 1 month later he would be dead. And it was just uncanny that that he knew that he wanted to say goodbye to his mother, and he was preparing and knowing every darn thing that was going to happen. And when the month before that, he said to me, when we go to England and you meet everyone, he said, I want to renew our wedding vows. We had only been married like several months, or not several months, maybe a year and a half or something. And it was always with poetry, and you'll remember me. And then he would write down the poems that he would recite to me. But the biggest thing of all was I was prepared. Even on 9/11, I knew that he knew that something horrible was going to happen. And that morning that he went off, I got up with him every single morning very early. And then I got that call from him, and he said to me, stop crying. He said, I have to get everyone out. And if something happens to me, I want you to know you made my life.
He got 2,700 people out, for the people that don't know.
Yes.
So he has 2,700 people that he saved lives, that brought in generation after generation of family and kids because of him. So in your heart, because of your husband,
yes,
there's kids and grandkids and more kids running around, living a life. And I believe that, I have strong faith. That's my daughter behind me that just passed away.
Mhm.
I believe that your husband was a soldier of God, not just of the people. I believe he had a purpose in his life and he knew it somewhere in his heart.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's
And, you know,
incredible. He's incredible, again, incredible human being. And I believe
Yeah.
wholeheartedly that you'll be with him again.
well, yes, I want to be with him again, obvious. Yes, very, very much. Well, the other thing was when he went back to his homeland and visited his mother for the last time. He also, like I said, we renewed our wedding vows, which was, you know, another thing that he was talking about. And I think there was one other thing that I wanted to say.
When he raised his fist in the,
Oh,
to Cornwall.
yeah. So anyway, back to the train thing, and he was going now his friend's saying goodbye to him. He goes to the end of the train and he puts his arm up in the air. And in the dialect of the people that lived in this area, he said goodbye to Cornwall, not knowing it, or maybe knowing that this was the last time he would ever be there. And so 3 years ago, I was contacted by the I forget what.
Great Western
the
Railway.
Great Western Railway of the United Kingdom, and they named a train after Rick. So if you ever get to London,
I'm
and you
always
get-
in
you
London.
can get on his train, okay?
Wow.
And on the outside of the train, they kept saying to me, "What do you want us to put on the outside of the train?" Well, I knew what it was. Because that incident when he was saying goodbye to his best friend, and he was standing in, you know, near the, when he was standing on the train, he again, you know, as I said, he put his arm up in the air, and in Cornish, he said goodbye to Cornwall. And so that's what they put on the side of the train. You have this whole thing with Rick's, you know,
Like his silhouette.
a silhouette. and-
I got, the next time I'm in London, I'm definitely gonna get on a train and videotape and I'll send it back to you because it's,
Wonderful.
Okay, that would be great, because and so I was, when I was there doing my speech and everything, they also, you know, they revered him so much, and I was able to, I do a lot of these speaking things now over the years, and I still get choked up talking, but you know, something just like you said, we all have to keep these, you know, these people who have done these incredible things, and with Rick, how humble he was, and how, you know what I mean? He just, he would have told you, don't do anything for me, you know?
there's a statue of him also, right at, is it Fort Benning?
Fort Benning.
Yeah, so what
Yeah.
happened was, right after 9/11, his two best friends and I I said to them, I want to have a statue of Rick down at Fort Benning. So I got the all the credentials that I had to go through in order to start this, and then I was the one that took care of all the money things to get the money and to see if we could really do this, and we did. And as a matter of fact, I'm going down there for the first time. I haven't been down there in several years. Going in May. It's supposed to be in May, to also see a small museum that I have given all of the memorabilia to them to have about Rick. And they will, and then there you will also see that the only thing that was left of Rick was his military tag. So I'm looking forward to going down there and doing it. And they have worked on this statue the last couple of years, but it looks really beautiful.
It's right outside so at Fort Benning, there's the National Infantry Museum, and his statue is right there.
you know what's incredible is, we're talking about your husband, and you know, most people love, I don't know anybody that doesn't love a romantic film.
Mhm.
And it's incredible what a great woman you are for his memory, honestly. I say that, you know, really through my heart, how it's incredible that you honor him the way you do, and don't let people forget about him. And, you know, people love movies and love stories, and this is an incredible one. What
Yeah.
you've done for him. And, you know, I just got to ask you this question.
Yes.
What's going through your mind when we have open borders like this, and
Oh.
possibly all kinds of terrorists are walking through our border, and the ability, and they're making it seem very easy for them to do another attack against this country? What are you thinking when this is going on?
Okay, so when I wake up in the morning, as I said, I talk to my husband and all that, and then I talk to God. And I say, God, what happened to America? I don't belong, I don't live in America anymore. Everything here is so awful. and then, of course, we have all these things with the immigrants coming over. It was one thing when they came over and they had to be able to get to come into our beautiful United States of America. And then if they had a disease or something, they knew and they were sent back or they were taken care of or whatever.
Well,
But now,
I'm sorry, Susan, I just want to cut you off 1 second so people understand.
yes,
We're all pro-immigration. All of us are, but in a controlled way,
yes,
where they could come in and have the American dream. So the people that are coming in right now, they're not getting the American dream anyway. They're getting the American nightmare.
right,
They're living on the streets, they're defecating on the streets. They can't get work visas for 4
Yeah.
years. They are being cattled in by the cartel. They're indebted to the cartel. They're being murdered. They're being slaved. They're being child trafficked. So people that understand, we are for immigration. You are for immigration. We are for the American dream. I just want to clarify that so people understand where you're coming from, and all of us.
yes, definitely, because like I said, if they come in here, I mean, we all had to live through everybody having all their vaccinations and all this other stuff, and now we have people coming in, don't have to do a darn thing, and bringing in all these horrible things for these young people to have to get their hands hold of. I don't know. I'm sick about it, to tell you the truth. And I don't know. When I get up in the morning, I have lots to talk to myself about. So I talk about all these things, and then I start to swear, and then I say to myself, please God, every morning, please forgive me, because I'm not going to swear. I just want you to please do something about this.
Well, your husband Rick was a war hero. He saw a lot of action. He saved tons of lives there. Also, I've listened to people talk about him that were in Vietnam with him and other places. And he also was against some of the things that was going on with these wars. Although he fought to protect his country, he was outspoken in a humble way, where he wasn't happy for what the leadership was doing and the government was doing with the country and the direction of the country. So, you can be a hero. You can also be a proud veteran, save lives, lose your life for this country like he did, but yet speak up honestly about the situation. No different than we're speaking up and you're speaking up about the immigration.
Yes.
John, I want to come back to something you said that's really powerful earlier in the conversation, which was about the lives born and unborn that he touched with his heroism. We've seen that firsthand in recent years, because when Susan mentioned we were in Washington for the past few years, there's an annual conference every November in DC called the American Veterans Center Conference, and they bring like the last of the World War II veterans, which are sadly a dying breed, but they also, there's Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, even up to the modern wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And through this whole, connection associations that we've had, we got to know people from Morgan Stanley, and there's still a few of them that work there to this day who are alive because of Rick. One of them has become a very close friend of ours. And so when Susan was mentioning her funny story about telling Rick's best friends to get out of the way, so she was on stage with one of those people that's become a real good friend of ours. And he looked out to the audience and he said, he pointed to his wife and daughter and he said, I wouldn't have them if it wasn't for Rick. So yeah.
And they wouldn't have their kids in the future if it wasn't for Rick.
Right.
I want to tell you something that you probably don't know. I'm Albanian, which you do know. And our flag, the Albanian flag, is the double-headed eagle. So that's our sign. So it was incredible when you started telling me about the eagle and the work that Rick was doing. And I was saying it's such a small world, and some of the coincidences or not coincidences of this is, something that's incredible again. Is that God is that, but it's incredible what he has done, what you guys have done. I have veteran friends, Brian Basho. I try to, anytime I talk, he's very, very highly decorated. JD, our Uncle Steve, all these guys are very good friends of mine. I've done shows on their shows. I Got You 6, and they're veterans. And we have 44,000 homeless veterans in this country that we do not take care of. And we are sending money overseas to other countries like Jordan, Lebanon, and we have 780,000 homeless people in this country. And this is the stuff that's got to be addressed by stuff that you guys are doing for war heroes, for people like your husband, and they're forgotten for their sacrifices and our freedom. And we have our freedom because of your husband and men like your husband.
Well, and that's why I'm so glad that you speak out as often as you do, because I have 5 children. 3 of them were little, born when 9/11 happened, but 2 of them weren't even born yet. And so, they didn't experience what the rest of us experienced. And so it's so important, I think, to just keep his memory and the whole situation alive so that people understand the sacrifices that are being made still to this day to keep our country as safe as possible.
Yes, definitely. And it's like, some people have said to me over the years, why do you continually talk about your husband? It's not like I'm sitting there, saying, oh, I really need, it's like, I do this with my heart. I do this with everything I have because I never had such love as we had in that very short period of time. And like I said, I thank God every moment that at least I had that time with him, and hopefully I will, when I go up there, I hope that I will be able to be with him then,
I think it's ignorant for anybody. Maybe they don't mean it in a bad way, but what I said earlier about it's truly romantic to continue speaking about him, and not just because he's your husband, because he's a hero. He should never be
Yes.
forgotten. Men like him should never be forgotten. It's taken for
Absolutely.
granted by the new generation of younger kids, and not just the younger generation, some of the elder people that are in this world, and they don't understand the sacrifice that someone did. This is a man that ran into a burning building that's falling down to save other people's lives when he could have just stood outside like everybody else and been safe. And when someone says, why you continue talking about him, we should never stop talking about him ever. This guy is a legend, your husband. He happens to be your husband. He's a legend. He's a true, true hero. It's incredible, his story, for anybody even question that. And I got to tell you, I commend you. I really mean it. It's incredible. I wish there was more people like you doing what you're doing in a memory of heroes like him, husband or not husband, but they need to be nonstop spoken about.
Yeah, I will be doing this until I pass away, and then hopefully he'll be
Years from now, Susan, many, many years from now.
I'm gonna
That's
be
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be 81 in March, and I want to
What
keep
day? What day is your birthday?
March 26th.
Okay.
Are you March?
My son's March 13th.
Oh,
That's right.
happy birthday ahead of time. Jose.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna
I
say
know we're
happy
coming up to
birthday to
less
you
than
too.
So I want to know where at this point, do you guys do anything as far as funds, and if somebody wanted to reach out to you for funding, for a charity, for anything that helps, anything that you're doing with any of these organizations, is there anywhere people can reach out or that are listening to us?
The
Well, the Raptor Trust,
the
right?
Raptor Trust is one, yes.
And-
But I don't, I mean, there's so many different things that every time I watch the television, I say to myself, gosh, I should be putting money out for this and that. For instance, the tunnel thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, the
And
Tunnel to Towers,
tunnel
Stephen
to-
I
Stiller.
do the Tunnel for Towers myself, and then I
Yeah.
do the St. Jude's for Children, or I'm try to be extremely active with that, and Cancer for Kids and things like that. But
Yeah,
yeah, so how would they get in touch with that if they wanted to reach out and donate to that organization?
which one?
The
The-
Raptors.
Oh, the
The
Raptor,
Raptor.
yeah.
The Raptor Trust?
So, let me just get I want to get the right website, but if you were to Google Raptor Trust, I believe, let me just double check. It's called, the official name of the place is the Raptor Trust Bird Rehabilitation and Education Center. And it's just theraptortrust.org. And I think, Susan, I mean, if you want to talk about your personal connection to the place, because it's not just that Rick's Eagles are there, but the people that run it have a real long history with Susan, if you want to talk about that.
Yes, like I said, 2020, well, when I first met Rick, that's the first place he took me, were the Eagles. And I knew how important this was to him, because that day I told you I went home and I wrote down every single thing he wanted me to do. Even with the plaque that's on there. But I don't know how I did all this, but anyway, and then when he died, I had people reading. He also loved poetry, and he wrote many things. And so we had about 15 people that came there. And anyway, I became very good friends with the owners. They did everything on this property. It's in the what is it? The woodlands. What do you call it?
It's in Millington,
It's
Millington.
in the swamplands.
Yeah.
And so for years, every time I go over there, he'd say, "Oh, you're back again. You're back again." This is the owners, knowing that with the story about Rick, that of course this was my cage. I bought the cage, so I go there. It is so wonderful to go there, and I just feel that Rick is there, and it's just a magical place. So anyway, yeah, that's one of the places that I take care of every year. You know what I mean? I try to help them out and so forth and so on. And I don't know.
And they're open year round, by the way. So they take care of those birds. I mean, they were there during Sandy. They were there during any big storm.
Right.
And so that's a lot of the people that support. We're very grateful that people support that place, because everyone that works there, including the experts that work with the birds, most of them are volunteers. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So where are you heading now as far as with Rick? Is there anything upcoming that you're doing? Any more speaking engagements? Is there
Yeah.
something that's coming up?
Thank God I do have a lot. Whenever I go back to England, and I love his family and I love the whole area there, they ask me to speak and everything. And I've been going down to been invited down to Washington, D.C. to the what Adam was talking about before, talking about Rick and talking about 9/11. And I go back and forth and the soldiers that I have met 20 years ago after 9/11. Rick was going to go to his every year they have a
There was a reunion of Vietnam
a
veterans.
reunion, okay, and obviously he died and he wasn't able to go. I went down there and I met his friends, the ones that were left from Vietnam and so forth, and it just everything just took a place, you know what I mean? It just kept going, one thing after the other, of all of it. So anyway, I do enjoy very, very much giving speeches. And I think I've spoken in front of a lot of people, and like to answer their question. If they have a question for me, I'm very honest with whatever I have to say back to them, and over, as I said, in England, I really wish, I hope I'm going back, but anyway, if it is, it's going to be in April of this year. And I'm going to there's a gentleman there who for years has been an advocate for Rick to keep him alive in his own homeland also. And I'm going to be actually going in the car with him a couple of times, I think, to meet people up in the hills and this and that, so they understand that this young man who was born there, that his story goes on and on and on.
Well, that's another thing that we really didn't touch on. He was born in the UK.
Yes.
And yet he was such a hero in America.
Yes.
And he saved so many lives. So he's.
Yeah. I have to tell you this one other piece though, about he and his mother. Okay, so he was brought up by his mother, and they lived in a little cottage. And I remember, unfortunately, after you when you get married again, it's a whole different thing. So of course his mother still kept talking in her dialect, and I kept saying to her, "What is she saying? What's her name? What's her name?" She kept saying to me in their language. And I said to Rick before we went, "I'll do the cooking. Your mother doesn't have to cook." She took all the pots and pans out of the kitchen so that I wasn't going to be able to touch anything. Anyway, so I learned so much more about him when I was down there also, and of course the naming of the train was a huge thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many people were there to be able, to have that's named after him. And then I was the guest down there with the president. Who was it?
The White House,
The White
2019.
House. Yeah, 2019. I was there. I also was the guest of Prince Charles when he had something after 9/11. There were so many people that were in the buildings in New York who were from England. And so they invited us to go down there and to be their guest, or, and then the other people came up here, and We went to many, many church things that were done. I can't tell you how many people contacted me, and
Susan has to tell you the story about her on a Harley. Now that's the story to tell.
Oh, yeah, I already know the Harley story because I read something about the Harley.
okay, this is the best part. Okay, so now I've gone down now. I met a lot of his army friends and so forth and so on. And in putting up the statue, I was with many of them. So now one of the guys called me. I don't know how many years ago. I guess it was about
09.
09.
2009, yeah.
Okay. He called me up and he said, I just wanted to tell you that we're going to honor your husband down in Fort Benning, and we're going to put up we're going down there, and we're going to bring the steel from Ground Zero down to Fort Benning and in that area.
All right, there was a piece of steel they were bringing, right?
Yeah. So I said to him, oh, when are you going? And he said, oh, so and so and so. And I said, I would like to go. Oh, well, no, you can't go. He said, we're going on Harleys and we're going to be gone for 3 nights. And no, you can't come. Have you ever been on a motorcycle? I said, maybe once. So then he said, I said, but I am going. I have to go with you. Well, they gave in. And thank God they let me go with them. And this is what he said to me: do not talk the entire time. Keep your arms tight around me, and don't keep asking to go to the bathroom, And so I had the best time of my life. And every time we stopped, they had to take the steel from Ground Zero and they had to bring it to, say, a Navy or an Army or
A base.
Okay. And they had to cover it with, just like it was a body, and they had candles lit all night long. And then in the morning they had to have the things, the blankets and everything crossed over and then put back on the long truck that they had, that we were bringing these 3 pieces down. And it rained and it did lots of other things. And you know what I learned? These guys were they were the best guys to be with. And I was the only one there. And I, certainly respected that they didn't want me to do this and this and that. And I didn't do it. They're still all my friends. They come to my house. They call me up. We try to keep in contact with each other. Even one of my husband's, what's his name? That was in Vietnam with him. His arm, what did it?
Was it?
No, it's
Bill.
Yeah,
Okay. Bill Full, he's a professor.
No, not him.
No?
No, the other guy who came to the house the other when I had that thing. Anyways, one of the men that was with Rick, and he was not his bodyguard, he was his.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's medic, Joe Holloway, who was his medic.
He was a medic. Okay?
Lives in New Jersey as well. Yeah.
And I call him all the time. How are you and everything? And he can really reminisce about Rick also, since they were together a lot. And for all these years on 9/11, I just stayed home and I only answered the phone. But the last 2 years, I decided I would bring some people together, and I invited those firemen and those policemen and so forth and so on. And now it looks as if I might even be, well, I don't want to say it because it's not in writing right now, but I think that they're going to do something for Rick in New York City. So
it's actually in the works, Susan. The NYPD has a special program that I didn't know much about, but they have something called the SHIELD program, which is like it's a connection between the public and the private sectors around terrorism. So law enforcement can have good cooperation with the civilian population around, dealing with threats. And they want to honor that program. They want to honor Rick with an award.
Is Rudy Giuliani involved with that? Because he was very active during the 9/11 and he was down. He's very supportive.
I was with those guys all the time. They invited me to come with them. I can't tell you how many policemen and firemen I went out to lunch with. They were so wonderful. I have some of them hanging on the walls.
Ray Kelly is on the wall there.
Ray Kelly was wonderful to me.
Oh, he's a great guy. I listen to his son a lot on the news. Great.
He is great. And then also there was an opera that was made in San Francisco, and that was about 3 years after 9/11.
Right, I watched some of that actually.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was, again, those are, because it's kind of what everybody wants to see. It's a hero and it's romantic. And I mean, I thought that was incredible too. I listened to the woman that was in charge of that, and I listened to her talk, her interview also.
Oh, Francesca Zambello.
Right, yes,
Yes.
they're all dear friends of mine. So I get there, they asked me to come out, and they said, don't tell anybody you're coming out, because we want them to meet you. These are the people that are, you know, playing my part and the other people and so forth. So I got down there and they did not know I was coming. So now everything stops. They were finished with their singing, you know, singing to get more, you know, to, I guess it was, they were going to stay a little bit longer.
An encore.
An encore, yeah. So now I start down, and she doesn't have any idea that I'm there, or none of them did. So she starts to come down, and I looked at her, I said, oh my God, you are so tall and you are so thin and you got this beautiful hair and you're so young and you're playing me. Thank you, God. Because I thought, this is incredible. Oh my gosh. And you know what? This woman that we're talking about, unfortunately, I wasn't well a couple of days ago, but she was coming through New York, and we haven't seen each other in all these years. And I was going to, you know, be able to spend a whole day with her, which didn't come about. But anyway.
But each 9/11, I think you guys still communicate through email. And,
Yes,
yeah, the whole
everybody.
cast of
Yes,
the.
oh, yes.
you know,
Every year, the whole cast emails me. So it's like, I don't have to go anywhere. I can just sit in my house and read these wonderful things or talk to people on the phone. So
the one other thing that's coming up. Oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
2,700 people your husband saved. 2,700 people. So just people understand how many people he saved and lost his life, so they can have a continuation of life and generations of family and life.
that's right.
That doesn't go by, and that should never be forgotten, ever.
Well,
by
I
any.
have to tell you one thing. I found something in my drawer in the home that we lived in, and it was right after he had died. And it was oh my God, what is it?
The letter, was it the?
No, it was oh, I know, it was the evacuation of the towers.
The plan, the actual plan.
The actual plan of how these guys, and with Rick leading and others and so forth and so on. And I took it to the 9/11 museum, and they made copies of it. And then a friend of mine, I didn't even know this woman, but anyway, she's still in the midst of writing a story about this.
There's a professor at Montclair State that's become a good friend of both of us, ours, and she's writing a book about using that plan.
But can you imagine how I just opened up a drawer and here it is? It's the whole thing, you know?
Well, I always think about how, you know, because people are lazy and they're complacent. I can imagine how many complained that Rick was forcing them to do this evacuation plan. They must have complained like crazy. Right. And said, oh, there's pain in the air, you know, blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, because they don't want to be bothered, not knowing that he was smart enough to understand.
Right. And you know what he was saying?
To save your life.
He told me, and other people told me afterwards, that he was saying to them, today is a day to be proud to be an American. Tomorrow the world will be looking at you.
Yeah. This is as they were going down the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what he was.
And I heard he was singing songs to them, and childhood songs, and to keep them calm and everything, which is incredible that he kept such composure and was worried about how they were and just trying to keep them all calm.
That's exactly right. And that's the kind of person he was. So
John, you also asked about what's, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. People forget, I remember I was jogging on the inside of a gym at Bally's on a second floor, watching everybody that was on treadmills. I was jogging around the track. They were on treadmills, and they're watching the first plane go into the tower. And I believe he was the South Tower, right? It went into the first tower. Then the South Tower was 20 minutes later, about 22 minutes later. But when I was jogging, it was like a movie. People weren't sure if it was realistic at first, because some people were watching it and screaming. Other people were thinking they were watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or something. And how you can forget that people were crying on the street, people were crying. Yeah. You can't forget that. I think that the problem with time is people get complacent, and we're allowing this to happen again through our border. And, you know, and they're just looking for another 9/11 if this continues. I just don't understand what our government's thinking.
Yeah, I don't either.
So to that point, John, I wanted to just, you were asking before, and this kind of connects to what you were just saying. You were asking what Susan has upcoming. She has spoken, one of the groups in her speaking engagements a lot has been cadets from the different service academies. So when you talk about the future, there's a lot to be kind of cynical about with this country, but there's also a lot of hope and promise when you see the young men and women that go into the military academy at West Point or the Naval Academy.
Well,
And-
my friend's an instructor, teaches at Captain Bo Farrell. I want to shout out to him. He's a captain and he teaches at West Point. Credible guy, young guy, and a true American. His brother Matt, his father, so his father raised him well. And I got to tell you, these guys make you proud that they're American, and you look up and you say these young guys really are
Right.
heroes for what they're doing, and they're trying to, continue the American way. And people lose their way, and it's terrible. And I hope they follow guys like Bo, like your husband.
Yes.
Bobby.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
So I'd love to see you guys. I'd love to come up to Baskin Ridge and visit. And without a doubt, I will do that. When you're free, and you let Katie know, and I'll shoot up and come see you. And I'd love to see the memorabilia you have and stuff like that also.
Yes, I would love you to come, and both of you come, so. And we'll
Thank
even go out to lunch, okay?
I'm
Thank
on
you
my
very
way.
much. And we'll have
And-
Katie pay.
And I
What?
just,
Well,
I just
Katie
want to
Pay,
say,
right?
I just want to say, Susan, your husband, obviously a hero, but for you to be honoring him, I think you are just such a great representation of what a wife and a woman supporting her husband can do. And you're to be honored as well, I think, because you could have just not done any of this. And, like everybody's saying, is to keep it in front of people and in front of the cadets, and so that they're proud and they know that people still care and people will honor them forever as well. That you just ought to be commended too.
Thank you for saying that, because for the longest time, I never think about that, you know what I mean? It's just something that it helps me, because I don't have to say goodbye to him, he's with me all the time.
Oh, he's with you. I believe that. And you are
Yeah.
an incredible woman, I said earlier, and I mean that. It's incredible, and he was lucky to have you as a wife, and he's a man that we won't forget. And people that are watching us sink or swim, if you like the show, subscribe. Write your comments. We'll answer them. Go to our website, johnelite.com. Go to my Instagram, True John Elite. And this is the kind of content that we want to do on our show. People like your husband and yourself that are heroes. And Adam, I really appreciate all the work you're doing. And I'd love to get together with you on the opioid.
Please do, anytime, just call me up, okay?
Thank you very much.
And Adam, thank you for reaching out on LinkedIn. You're the one that made this all happen, so appreciate
Shows you
it.
the power of connection for sure.
Yes, yes.
I really appreciate you guys, and people that are voting in Philadelphia, City Councilman Sam Apizia, my friend, ex-UFC fighter. And he's a guy that's not talking about it. He's been on the streets of Kensington, cleaning the streets, working with kids that are hooked on drugs. He's out there actually doing it, and he's about something. He goes into the gyms on the weekend. He teaches kids and families. So I really got a lot of admiration for him. Great guy, great father, great human being. So look for Sam for the next election for City Council in Philadelphia, please. Thank you,
Sure.
everybody. And again, thank you for watching Sink or Swim. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. God bless both of
God
you.
bless you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.